What secret has your family hidden from you that changed your perception of life? The gallery was swallowed in shadows and whispers, an echo chamber of polished surfaces and muted anticipation. Elena Rivers stood near the center of the room, the dim, moody lighting casting cold blues and grays over her worn jeans and oversized sweater paint smudges still clinging stubbornly to her fingers like stubborn memories. The walls around her displayed her work, canvases teeming with stormy waves and fractured compasses, cryptic symbols of a life caught between past and future. A low hum of conversation shifted around the gallery floor, occasional glances darting her way before turning back to the familiar faces draped in fine fabrics and polished indifference. Elena's heartbeat thudded audibly in her ears, a fragile drumbeat of hope and dread. Her eyes flicked to the gallery owner, a tall figure draped in shadows near the entrance whose sharp gaze scanned the room with clinical detachment. The man's thin lips curled in a tight, dismissive smile as he approached, folding his arms with a rehearsed casualness that belied the piercing scrutiny in his eyes. "Rivers," he said, voice cool but cutting, "your work lacks depth. It's surface-level derivative, honestly. We need pieces that pull people in, that have the gravitas to move them. This doesn't." The words hit like a fist, sharp and unforgiving. Elena's stomach flipped, limbs frozen in the stained leather armchair she'd taken refuge in just minutes before. The gathered crowd seemed to drift away like mist, their eyes no longer focused on the art, but on her, the failed promise under fluorescent glare. A man in a tailored suit nearby muttered, trite, and laughter, brittle and cold, rippled through the edges of the room. Elena swallowed hard. Her lungs tightened as if the very air had thickened, each breath a laborious effort wrapped in shame. The polished concrete beneath her feet blurred, the walls closing in with suffocating quiet. She tried to speak, but her voice fractured, a whisper swallowed before it could reach air. I see things differently," she murmured, eyes downcast. The gallery owner's gaze hardened, dismissive. "Your vision needs clarity, not these blurred tropes." A heavy pause hung between them like a shroud. Elena could feel the weight of countless unseen eyes, the crushing verdict of judgment rendered in silence and sideways glances. The laughter subsided, replaced by polite murmurs, and the night pressed forward without her. Her gaze rose toward the windows, where sheets of rain traced dark trails down fogged glass, the ocean's distant roar a restless undercurrent to the scene. Her fingers curled into fists, fingertips aching beneath the worn fabric of her sweater. In that fractured moment, Elena was a fractured compass lost, spinning in search of true north, unsure if she'd find it. The gallery lights dimmed further. The crowd thinned, and still, she remained seated, a lone figure in the shadows swallowed whole by a wave of silent, suffocating rejection. Outside, the cold night sky churned with the promise of a storm, the ocean waves crashing relentlessly into jagged rocks, mirroring the turmoil that had ignited within her. The broken compass tattooed inside her mind turned endlessly, searching for a way forward in the darkness. And yet, beneath the cold weight of failure, a faint pulse stirred, the first whisper of something waiting to emerge from depths unknown. The rain hissed softly against the windowpane, a persistent, gentle murmur that matched the steady rhythm of Elena Rivers' breathing. The study was cloaked in twilight shadows, thick and velvety sanctuary from the harsh light of the gallery's disinfecting glare. The walls, lined with weathered books and relics of her father's Longpa days, exhaled a musty, comforting scent, a blend of time and forgotten stories. Elena sank into the cracked leather armchair, guilty weight pinning her down with invisible chains. Her fingers, still smeared with paint, trembled slightly as they grazed the surface of an old oak desk scattered with yellowed papers and trinkets. The gallery owner's sharp dismissal echoed in her mind, a jagged shard of cold doubt piercing her heart. Lacking depth. Derivative. The words replayed with cruel clarity. Darkness seemed to seep through her skin, pooling in the hollows beneath her eyes. Her mind swirled with memories of her father, his distant smile, the secrets tucked away in the family's quiet coastal home. The pain of failure felt less like a wound and more like a chasm yawning beneath her feet. The soft tapping of the rain grew louder, blending with the distant crash of waves against the rocky cliffs, an unyielding reminder of the world's ceaseless motion beyond her stillness. The lighthouse, long abandoned and silhouetted like a ghost against the stormy horizon, cast a faint shadow that stretched across the floor, as if it too bore witness to her turmoil. Her gaze drifted downward to the worn bindings of a leather journal, poking beneath a stack of letters. Faded handwriting hinted at family secrets and the possibility of stories yet untold. With a hesitant breath, she pulled the journal free, fingers trembling as she traced its spine. The room held its breath with her, thick and silent, as rain and sea blended outside into a symphony of gray and blue. Alina's heart lurched with a cocktail of fear and curiosity, a delicate pulse of life threading through the suffocating stillness. There was no comfort here, only the slow unraveling of certainty and the fragile stirring of resolve beneath layers of doubt. The broken compass, a relic from her father now resting on the desk, caught a stray shard of muted light, its fractured glass reflecting the fractured pieces of her own path. Alina reached for it, fingertips brushing the cracked surface as though seeking connection, a guide through the chaos. The compass trembled slightly in her hand, a silent heart beating in the frozen air. She closed her eyes, swallowed the bitter taste of humiliation, and in that dark cradle of silence, something deep within her shifted, whispering faintly of roads unseen, of truths waiting beyond the horizon. The storm outside gathered strength, waves pounding relentless and wild, but inside the stillness, Alina's breath slowed, her fingers gripped a fading thread of hope weaving through the shadows. And though the night was long and heavy, the first fragile flicker of light like dawn stirring beneath the ocean's roar had begun. The study was dark, save for the narrow slivers of fading twilight that sliced through heavy curtains and dust-laden air. Alina's breath hung in the stillness, faint and rhythmic, a fragile pulse amid the thick silence. The once lively room, now muted and distant, held the ghostly imprints of her father's presence: a cracked leather chair, stacks of water-stained papers, the faint scent of brine and aged cedar that clung stubbornly to the wood. She knelt by an ancient chest beneath the window, fingers trembling as they moved against the rough grain. The pain of rejection, still raw beneath her skin, had folded inward, folding her will with it until now. The setback was a shadow at the edge of her fading resolve. But within this shadowed sanctuary, something hidden waited. A box, weathered and unassuming, lay forgotten under folds of yellowed cloth. Alina's palm brushed away the fabric, revealing a peculiar compass, nestled like a secret heart amidst the forgotten. It was no ordinary compass but a delicate piece etched with intricate markings unlike any she had seen, the needle fractured, refusing to find north, imprisoned in its own broken truth. She lifted it reverently, noting the weight of history tethered to its shell. Her fingers found a catch, softly clicking as a hidden compartment sprung open, revealing a delicate, folded map, its lines faded and mingled with cryptic symbols, tracing paths both familiar and mystifying. The compass trembled faintly in her grasp as though alive with restless longing. The broken instrument mirrored the fractures within her lost direction, yet yearning. And yet, the map spoke of paths unseen. Outside, the night deepened, the distant ocean unleashing a steady, aching roar, a chorus of relentless waves crashing against the cliffs below. The lighthouse stood sentinel, dark and forlorn, its beacon eons gone, yet it somehow pulsed in the depths of her mind, a symbol of light swallowed but not extinguished. Alina's eyes traced the lines of the map, her breath catching as the contours that emerged resembled the coastline of her hometown, familiar cliffs, hidden caves, and long-forgotten beaches. It was an unspoken invitation wrapped in mystery, a beckoning toward truths unspoken but undeniably near. She folded the compass and map carefully, pressing them to her heart as if to hold the scattered pieces of her fractured world close. The air shifted, cooler now, the scent of salt mingling with the quiet promise of rain, a bittersweet prelude to change. A solitary tear traced down her cheek, catching the shimmer of the lantern's gentle flicker. It was a tear born not merely of despair, but of awakening the first breath of courage whispering beneath the weight of doubt. Elena rose, the broken compass pulsating faintly in her palm, fragile yet insistent. She glanced once more to the lighthouse silhouette etched against the horizon, a dim reminder that even the lost could shine again. In that moment, the fractured compass became more than a symbol of her lost way. It was a key, a guiding pulse amid the storm, illuminating the path where her father's secrets lay, waiting in the shadows. And with that quiet, simmering spark, the journey stirred a tentative step from silence into the vast unknown. A dense mist clung to the coastline, blurring the jagged edges of the cliffs and swallowing the faint, muted cries of the sea below. Elena Rivers stood at the edge of the weathered pier, the splintered wood groaning under her weight. The ocean's cold breath seeped into her bones, as restless and wild as the turmoil spiraling inside her chest. Her fingers repeatedly traced the delicate compass, a broken relic as fractured as her sense of direction, its needle twitching purposelessly in her palm. The map she'd found nestled inside the compass seemed alive beneath the dim light of the early morning, its faded lines beckoning her into the tangled history of this coastal town she thought she knew. Yet, beneath the familiar shapes of cliffs and coves lay hidden markings, paths, symbols she couldn't decipher but felt compelled to follow. The sky was an endless expanse of gray, thick with the promise of rain, each heavy droplet urging her onward even as doubt pooled darkly in her heart. She lifted the map closer to the battered lighthouse, standing stoic despite the years of neglect, its weathered face a sentinel shielding the secrets of a forgotten past. Elena took a hesitant step forward, the salty air filling her lungs as the crashing waves composed a relentless symphony, chaotic yet mesmerizing. The lighthouse seemed to pulse in rhythm with the pounding ocean, its silent beacon a faint but steady promise of enlightenment amid an overwhelming tide of emotion and unanswered questions. Inside, the hollow wind howled through fractured windows, wrapping Elena in a cold embrace. Her footsteps echoed on the cracked stone floor as she ventured deeper, each step a dialogue with the shadows of her father's past. The walls bore faded graffiti, etched names and dates, a ghostly testimony to lost souls who once sought refuge here. Her gaze caught a glint among the rubble, an old journal, its leather binding cracked but resolute. Elena knelt to retrieve it, her paint-stained fingers trembling as she flipped open brittle pages inked with looping script. Words swirled in her mind, half familiar, half enigmatic, stories of journeys taken, promises broken, and a legacy tangled beneath layers of silence. A chill ran down her spine as her eyes lingered on a particular passage describing a cave beneath the cliffs, a place where land and sea converged, a threshold to something hidden and profound. The words hung thick with implication, stirring a mixture of dread and exhilaration. Outside, the storm broke, rain hammering the lighthouse roof and seeping through cracks in relentless torrents. Elena's gaze rose to the salted glass as lightning cleaved the sky, a fleeting revelation in the roiling dark. "This map," she whispered, voice raw yet imbued with a fragile resolve. "It's not just a guide, it's a calling." Her heart thrummed with uncertain hope, the compass's broken needle aligning with her resolve. The journey ahead was fraught with shadows and storms, but beneath the weight of denial and fear, Elena found a slender thread weaving through the chaos, a path forward illuminated by the flickering light of discovery. A distant howl of wind mingled with the crashing waves, an orchestra of nature's raw power welcoming her into the unknown. And as the rain blurred the edges of the lighthouse's enduring silhouette, Elena took a breath, stepping into the relentless embrace of the past and the promise of revelation yet to come. The sky thickened with low, restless clouds, casting a bruised gray pall over the coastal town. Rain began to fall in misty sheets, slicking the winding streets and curling cliffs that embraced the restless ocean. Elena Rivers pulled her sweater tighter around her, her footsteps hesitant but driven as she threaded through the familiar yet distant streets that whispered echoes of her childhood. The map's faded contours burned in her mind, leading her from rusted docks to weather-beaten paths veined with tangled roots and secrets. Each stop unspooled a thread of her father's hidden past: a forgotten lighthouse twisting forlorn against the skyline, a neglected cemetery with moss-cloaked stones, an old boatyard with peeling paint and silent memories. Her discoveries drew whispers among her friends and the small circle she still trusted. Some voices wavered in disbelief, others laced their concern with a skepticism that fractured her resolve. Elena, her closest friend Mara, cautioned one evening, eyes shadowed against the flicker of candlelight in the cramped apartment. "You're chasing ghosts. Maybe some things are better left buried." Guilt knotted in Elena's stomach, but a flicker of fierce determination ignited beneath. "I have to know. If there's even a chance this leads to the truth, I can't turn away." Her questions tangled deeper into family fabric long frayed but never cut. Letters hidden beneath floorboards, photographs yellowed by time but vivid in their silent testimony. There were gaps, too, in the stories she was told, muffled voices that seeped beneath the surface but never emerged fully. One dusk, amidst a bracing wind that tugged at her hair and clothes, Elena stood at the edge of a rocky inlet, the sea churning restlessly below, dark waves pounding in an unending cadence. Her fingers traced the broken compass hidden in her pocket, its needle fractured yet pulsing faintly with a life of its own. It felt like a heartbeat she had long sought, the lost direction now etched in hope. Suddenly, a sharp voice broke through the roar of the waves. "This obsession, it's tearing you apart, Elena." She turned sharply to see her childhood neighbor, Jonas, standing beneath the sheltering eaves, the lines around his eyes drawn tight with worry. "I can't stop now, not when I'm this close," she responded, voice steady despite the tremor threading through it. "There's something beneath it all, Jonas. Something I need to find." His gaze faltered, pain and fear aching in his eyes. "But what if it destroys you? Or what if the picture you're painting is nothing but shadows and lies?" Elena swallowed her fear, resolve shining like a brittle flame in her gaze. "I have to risk the darkness to find the light." Those words hung suspended between them, fragile and fierce. The ocean thundered beneath, a reminder of the vast emotional depths she had yet to navigate. Days slipped into nights filled with restless dreams, whispers of unknown voices, half-remembered memories drifting like fragile mist. Elena wrestled with doubts that clawed at her confidence, yet each small victory, the unearthing of a lost photograph, the decoding of a cryptic letter, was a step forward through the encroaching fog. But progress was threaded with sacrifice. Late one evening, as rain hammered the tin roof of her sanctuary, a letter slipped silently beneath her door, unsigned and foreboding. The stark message was simple, brutal: "Stop digging. Some secrets drown for a reason." The words echoed in the hollow chambers of her resolve, stirring fear and defiance in equal measure. Elena's eyes lingered on the rain-washed window, watching the sea's endless dance of light and shadow, the eternal push and pull mirroring her own journey's precarious balance. Her breath caught, the compass's broken needle resting heavily against her palm, a reminder that direction was not always given, sometimes it had to be forged. A storm gathered beyond the cliffs, lightning fracturing the darkened sky. And in that fractured light, Elena Rivers felt the fragile, fierce heartbeat of revelation poised on the knife's edge between truth and peril, hope and darkness, as the shadows of her father's legacy stretched out to meet her. The wind clawed at the weathered cliffs as Elena Rivers stood outside the dilapidated lighthouse, its silhouette fractured against a bruised sky heavy with gray clouds. The jagged rocks below crashed relentlessly with waves whipped into furious froth, a relentless storm echoing the turmoil raging inside her. Her breath was shallow, mingling with the cold, salty air as she gripped the broken compass tightly, its cracked glass reflecting a fragmented reality. Elena's feet moved forward, hesitance battling with resolve as she stepped over stones worn smooth by the tides. The lighthouse, abandoned yet imposing, beckoned like a silent sentinel guarding secrets buried beneath years of dust and silence. Its once brilliant light extinguished, the structure stood as a metaphor for her own fading certainty but also the promise of illumination buried deep within. Inside, Shadows wove tendrils across peeling paint and shattered glass, swallowing the faint beam from her flashlight. The air smelled of damp wood and forgotten memories, and with every creak of the floorboards, Elena felt the history breathe alongside her. Her fingers trembled as she made her way to a concealed alcove near the spiral staircase, where a rusted tin box lay hidden among debris. With deliberate, aching movements, she pried it open. Inside were letters yellowed and brittle with her father's unmistakable script flowing across fragile pages. As she unfolded one, the words stung with intimate confession, revealing fractures in the family legacy she had never imagined. Her father's voice spoke of debts unpaid, of sacrifices made in shadows, and of truths guarded fiercely at great personal cost. A sudden noise startled her, the soft shuffle of footsteps above. Heart-pounding, Elena froze. Moments later, a tall figure stepped into the pale light. It was her uncle, his eyes dark and unreadable beneath the brim of an old cap. "You shouldn't be here," he said, voice low but firm, like the tide pushing back against an intruder. Elena met his gaze, defiance and desperation intertwining. "I need to know the truth." He sighed, a weight pressing down between them. "Some truths bury more than pain, they fracture families. Be careful what you seek." The electric tension in the room spiraled, and Elena realized the battle she thought was outside was raging just as fiercely within her own bloodline. The portrait of her father she'd clung to was tainted by shadows that could unravel everything she believed. Clutching the broken compass, Elena felt the pull of generations beneath her fingertips, disjointed, fragmented, but alive. The map nestled within it suddenly took on new significance. It wasn't just a path through geography, but a journey through the labyrinth of her own lineage. The lighthouse's hollow walls seemed to hold their breath as the storm outside intensified, each crash of the ocean against rock a mournful drumbeat telling of hidden betrayals and unspoken sins. Elena's voice barely rose above the storm's howl. "I won't turn back. Not now." Her uncle's eyes betrayed a flicker of something unspoken: regret, fear, or perhaps a grudging respect. As she stepped back into the rain, the compass needle wavered, then aligned briefly, pointing not just toward land but toward the converging currents of past and future. It was a fragile beacon piercing the tempest, a promise that despite loss and betrayal, redemption could be forged. The waves crashed mercilessly, but Elena's heart steadied with the revelation she was no longer merely chasing shadows but unraveling a legacy that would redefine her own story. And as the lighthouse stood silent behind her, a sentinel in the storm, Elena walked forward, the map tucked safely in her coat, a guide to secrets yet uncovered, and truths waiting patiently in the dark. The sky hung low and swollen with fog, draping the coastal town in a suffocating embrace of gray. Elena Rivers sat motionless on the creaking wooden bench of the deserted pier, the waves crashing relentlessly against jagged rocks below, each surge rippling with a relentless tide of grief and uncertainty. The cold air bit through the threadbare fabric of her sweater, but she barely noticed, lost in the spiraling storm within. Her slender fingers curled tightly around the broken compass, its fractured needle trembling like a pulse she could no longer discern. The map that had once promised illumination now felt like a cruel mirage, a labyrinthine torment that pulled her deeper into shadows she hadn't seen coming. The confrontation with her uncle remained etched in her mind, a harsh shattering of trust as his guarded words carved through the fragile hopes she had clung to. "Some truths fracture families," he had said, his voice heavy with regret and menace intertwined. The weight of his opposition pressed down upon her, suffocating the fleeting light she had carried. Night had fallen fully, the town swallowed in a cold mist punctuated only by the distant, haunted glow of the abandoned lighthouse. Its faded beacon no longer a guide but a relic of fractured hope. Elena's breath fogged the air as she exhaled slowly, her heart a slow, erratic drum beat against the hollow ache of betrayal. Few sounds pierced the void: a lone seabird's cry, the whisper of damp leaves stirred by restless wind, the scattered footsteps that echoed from distant alleys where secrets festered. Elena's eyes, sharp and green yet dull with exhaustion, traced the swirling fog as it tangled with the night. The world once vivid in colors and promise now seemed stripped to an austere symphony of blues and grays, mirroring the ice tightening its grip around her spirit. Words eluded her, retreating into silence thick as the fog itself. Her voice came as a bare whisper to the empty sky. Where do I go when all I believed is undone? Her gaze fell again to the broken compasson emblem of lost direction, a symbol she both loathed and needed. It trembled faintly, a reluctant heartbeat in the stillness. It was not just a talisman, it was the fractured path of her own identity unraveling. The ocean roared below, its chaos a mirror of her disarray. The cold spray misted upward, the salt stinging her cheeks, blurring vision and dissolving resolve. Each wave pulled at her, threatening to drag her beneath the surface where clarity dissolved into chaos. She felt utterly ill, the fragile ties of family slipping like sand through grasping fingers, the whispered promises of solidarity twisted into shards of deception. The night deepened. The lighthouse's silhouette faded into the heavy fog, swallowed by the vast emptiness. Elena remained seated, barely breathing, a lone figure adrift in a sea of memories and loss. Her spirit teetered on the brink of quiet, suffocating descent into darkness from which there seemed no rescue. And yet, beneath the crushing weight of despair, the broken compass pulsed faintly, stubbornly, a flicker of the relentless human yearning for truth and redemption, waiting for a hand brave enough to follow. Night had settled over the coastal town, the darkness thick and suffocating like ink spilled across the sky. Elena Rivers found herself alone in the cavernous, crumbling lighthouse, its empty rooms swallowing the faint light of distant stars. The once vibrant house of guidance now became a mausoleum of memories, a tomb for truths too heavy to bear. She sat on the cold stone floor, her slender frame curled inward as if to shield herself from the vast emptiness echoing through the hollow walls. The biting chill of the sea air sneaked through shattered windows, weaving a harsh chill through the cracks in her resolve. The distant crash of waves against jagged cliffs was relentless, mirroring the turmoil thrashing inside her, ceaseless, overwhelming, unforgiving. In her hands rested the broken compass, its cracked glass reflecting only fragmented images of a self she barely recognized. The needle, once a symbol of lost direction and hope, now felt like a cruel mockery of her fractured journey. It rested inert and cold, much like the flickering light of the ruined lighthouse that offered no guidance anymore. Her breath came shallow, each exhale a ghostly plume in the frigid night. The ceiling above seemed to press down upon her with invisible weight, walls echoing back silence where voices and answers should have been. The shadows between beams stretched long, consumed by darkness, unsettling and endless. Time lost meaning. Seconds bled into minutes, and minutes into an eternity of cold isolation. Elena's thoughts spiraled, memories of betrayal, the harsh confrontation with her uncle, the shattering discovery of her father's obscured past. The wounds were raw, festering beneath the surface, tearing away her hope thread by fragile thread. A single photograph lay beside her, a faded, sepia-toned image of her family from a time untouched by secrets or pain. Her fingers traced its worn edges gently, a fleeting touch upon a ghost of happiness forever out of reach. The faces smiled back, frozen in a moment she could no longer hold. Her lips barely moved, whispering into the stillness, "Why?" No answer came. Only the ocean's mournful hymn and the wind's lonely cry. Hours passed, the room growing colder, darker. Elena's eyelids felt heavy, but sleep evaded her, a vigil held beneath the weight of grief. The compass slipped from her fingers, soundless as it hit the stone below and settled near the photograph. The fractured glass caught a faint gleam from a sliver of moonlight breaking through the clouds, casting fractured patterns that danced across the floor. In that fractured light, Elena saw her own broken reflection, scattered and incomplete, an echo of the path she once imagined, now shattered. And there, in the silence thick enough to suffocate, she sat motionless, consumed by the black tides within, on the brink of surrender, poised between fading hope and the abyss. The night air was thick and heavy, laden with the brine of the endless ocean and the weight of Alina's solitude. She sat curled beneath the skeletal frame of the abandoned lighthouse, its walls a refuge and a prison all at once. The scent of damp stone and seaweed wove around her, the slow drip of water echoing in the hollow chambers like a heartbeat too faint to trust. In her hands, Alina cradled an old photograph, brittle and yellowed at the edges. The image was of her family, her father, younger, smiling with an openness she had never known, herself, a child truncating innocence, and a figure seated slightly apart she did not recognize, obscured by shadows yet undeniably part of the past she'd barely scratched. The photo was a fragile beacon amidst the darkness, a glimmer of days when secrets were still shadows, not chains. Her gaze lifted slowly to the lighthouse's heavy wooden door, swollen with age and sea salt, standing like a barrier between the past and a future she feared to claim. The broken compass lay beside Hera's silent companion, fractured but persistent. Its needle, once wildly spinning, now rested barely steady on a direction she had yet to understand. The wind carried the distant roar of waves crashing against jagged cliffs, a constant song of emotional ferocity that matched the turmoil stirring deep inside her. Tears blurred her vision momentarily before she steadied herself, breath slow, steady, grasping the fragile tendrils of hope intertwined with despair. A faint glow broke through the gloom as her fingers traced the edges of the photograph again, anchoring her to a promise unspoken but deeply felt. This flicker of memory was proof that the past held more than darkness, it held keys. Her lips parted softly, words suspended on the verge of revelation. "Not all is lost," she whispered, voice a fragile thread woven into the night. The lantern's flickering light cast dancing shadows on the rough walls, a subtle dance of light and dark mirroring the battle within. Alina's shoulders straightened with the first breath of renewed resolve. The journey ahead remained uncertain, the path riddled with mysteries and betrayal, but the ember of discovery kindled anew. She folded the photograph with reverence, slipping it safely into the cracked leather journal she'd found in her father's study. Rising, Alina cast one last look at the lighthouse, the silent sentry that had borne witness to generations of secrets and sorrow. The moon, broken through the shifting clouds, bathed the shore in pale silver. In that ghostly light, Alina Rivers felt the faint stirrings of clarity, fragile yet undeniable, a lighthouse within herself, waiting to guide her through the tempest. The ocean's waves continued their eternal song, relentless yet oddly comforting, as a new chapter quietly beckoned beneath the stars. And in that silence tempered by hope, Alina rose to face the uncertain dawn, the broken compass still warm in her hand, a compass pointing not just to destination, but to the courage to keep searching. The first light of dawn seeped through the cracks of the old lighthouse, casting a muted amber glow over the jagged edges of the coastline. Alina Rivers moved quietly along the weathered wooden planks, each step purposeful yet tentative, as if crossing a threshold from shadow into a fragile promise of renewal. The air was crisp, tinged with salt and the scent of damp stone, awakening her senses to a world that had long been hemmed in by darkness. Her fingers brushed the fractured surface of the broken compass, still tucked inside her coat pocket, a relic that had once seemed like a fragment of chaos but now felt like a seed of hope. She paused at the entrance of the lighthouse, her gaze sweeping over the battered structure, its silhouette etched stark against the pale morning sky. The stones, weathered and chipped, told stories of storms endured and secrets buried beneath layers of salt and time. Inside, shadows lingered, thick and heavy, yet beneath them, a tentative warmth began to stir. Soft hues of peach and gold infused the gloom. Alina's eyes softened as she moved slowly through the empty corridors, memories of her past echoing faintly in the silence. The walls, once silent witnesses to loss and betrayal, now seemed to breathe softly, inviting her into a space where clarity might meet chaos. The faint hum of the morning tide grew steadily louder, a gentle reminder of change below the surface. She reached the core of the lighthouse, where the old lantern once shone brightly, illuminating the way through tumult and doubt. Now, It was dark, its glass cracked but still holding the faint glimmer of the rising Suna, symbol of light yet to be reclaimed. Elena gently placed her palm on the weathered surface of an old wooden table, her fingertips tracing the worn grain. In that quiet moment, she felt an awakening within, a flicker of resilience she thought was lost beneath the layers of heartbreak. Her breath slowed, steadying her fraying nerves, and she closed her eyes as whispers of strength surfaced, fragile but potent. She reached into her coat and retrieved the small compass, its fractured needle quivering as if in response to her renewed resolve. It was a fragile vessel carrying the remnants of her journey, pointing towards the unknown, a silent call to forge ahead despite the resistance of past wounds. A faint gust of wind slipped through the cracks, stirring the air and stirring the edges of her consciousness. The ocean's distant voice swelled in a rhythmic crescendo, waves shaping the shore with relentless patience, mirroring her inner tides, the chaotic depth of her own history starting to find order. Elena's lips curled into a tentative smile, realization blooming like a delicate flower beneath the rough exterior. Her gaze drifted toward the window, where the horizon shimmered with the promise of dawn, an awakening of possibility, of truths waiting patiently to be uncovered. In that quiet, sacred space, she understood that her journey was far from over, but the first embers of hope had begun to ignite. The storm in her soul started to recede, replaced by a gentle, unwavering light, the beginning of a new path forged from the remnants of despair, worthy of the trials she had endured. Dawn's early light seeped through the cracked, weathered windows of the lighthouse, casting a gentle glow over Elena Rivers as she stood silently at its base. The air was thick with the scent of salt and wet stone, a grounding aroma that connected her to the ocean's relentless tumult and the peace that was beginning to dawn within her. Her eyes, once clouded with doubt and grief, now shimmered with a quiet resolve. She moved slowly, almost reverently, toward the central chamber where the old lantern once shone brightly. The space was cluttered with relics of her father's life, dusty maps, faded photographs, and the absent, guiding light long extinguished. She slid her fingers over a weathered journal resting atop a cluttered table, its pages brittle with age but filled with her father's handwriting, an unspoken legacy waiting to be unraveled. Outside, the ocean roared below, waves hammering the cliffs with renewed vigor. Elena's gaze lingered on the horizon where the sea and sky blurred in hues of dawn and possibility. She reached into her coat, retrieving the fractured compass, the strange relic that had led her through darkness and into truths she had only begun to comprehend. Her fingers brushed its jagged edges, feeling a faint pulse of life amid the broken glass. A gust of wind swept through, stirring the dust and whispering secrets long buried. Elena closed her eyes, allowing herself a moment of stillness amid the chaos. She took a breath, deep and steady, filling her lungs with the salty air that carried the weight of history and hope. The fractured needle of the compass quivered almost as if responding to her newfound strength. It pointed unwaveringly toward the tumultuous ocean, a symbol of both depth and chaos, a reminder that her journey was far from over but now guided by purpose. She turned, her silhouette bathed in the emerging dawn, a newfound resolve igniting within her. Her voice, soft yet resolute, broke the silence, revealing the core of her transformation. No more shadows. No more secrets that drown us in silence, she whispered, voice carrying the weight of a promise. Today, I choose to listen to the truth no matter how deep or stormy. Her hand raised, clasping the broken compass as a beacon of Hippian emblem of her courage to forge ahead. The ocean's roar grew louder, echoing her inner storm, now settling into a rhythm of strength and renewal. The dawn's light spilled fully over the cliffs, illuminating her Patan uncharted course guided by the fractured relic in her hand. Elena's face reflected a quiet certainty as she stepped forward, leaving behind the darkness of doubt to embrace the uncertain, yet promising, horizon. In that luminous moment, she understood that the true journey was not just about uncovering the past but about reclaiming her future. The ocean's symphony faded into a gentle whisper, a lullaby for her soul, a testament to resilience, rebirth, and the endless pursuit of truth. The first rays of dawn cut through the heavy fog, illuminating the jagged coastline with a soft, golden glow and spoken herald of renewal. Elena Rivers stood atop the weathered cliffs, the ocean raging below in a tumult of white foam and dark depths, mirroring the storm that had raged within her. Her silhouette was unwavering, bathed in the warm light that spilled over the horizon, like the promise of a new beginning forged from shadows. In her hand, the frail yet resilient compass shimmered faintly, fractured edges catching the sunlight, a symbol of her own broken pieces, now mended and shining with the truth she had fought so fiercely to uncover. The jagged map enclosed within had led her through tangled secrets and family betrayals, through the depths of grief and despair, and now, finally, toward clarity. Her gaze was steady, piercing through the mist that still clung to her skin, her eyes reflecting a profound peace and acceptance born from the crucible of her journey. Her worn sweater clung to her slender frame, but her shoulders, once hunched in defeat, now radiated strength and certainty. The ocean's roar was distant, almost faded, replaced by a delicate silence, a pause before the storm of revelations was met with the calm of justice. Behind her, the abandoned lighthouse stood as a silent testament to resilience, a beacon once lost in darkness, now a symbol of insight and enlightenment. Elena's lips lifted into a faint, knowing smile, the kind that comes after the longest, hardest night. Her fingers brushed the cracked glass of the compass, feeling the pulse of her own unyielding heart, deep, steady, and unwavering. She spoke softly, her words a quiet promise to herself, to the land, and to the ghosts she carried. I have found my way not by avoiding the storm, but by learning to dance within it. The wind carried her voice across the cliffs, a gentle, affirming echo that mingled with the waves. As she turned, her eyes fixed on the horizon where ocean and sky blurred into an infinite tapestry of hope, a union of past and future, chaos and clarity. Every step she took was deliberate, a testament to the strength she had. Redis covered the strength to face whatever truths awaited beyond the horizon. Her figure blurred into the vastness, a mere silhouette against the dawn's awakening light, symbolizing the union of her past and her future. The land's silent witness, the ocean's relentless embrace, and the fractured compass that once pointed nowhere all converged to herald a new chapter. Elena's heart beat in unison with the endless, rolling tide, a symbol of resilience and hope. The storm had passed, but the journey was only beginning. And as the first true rays of sunlight crowned the world in golden glory, she used breathing in the dawn of understanding and the serenity of her own reawakened soul. The horizon shimmered with promise, endless as her reborn spirit ready to embrace the truths that beckoned beyond the merging land and sea. The quiet hum of the ocean softened as the first light of dawn crept over the rugged coastline. Elena Rivers stood atop a weathered cliff, the horizon stretching infinitely, merging land and sea in a blur of soft blues and muted grays. Her silhouette was delicate and still, contrasted against the vastness, a symbol of serenity born from turmoil. Her hands rested loosely by her sides, fingers brushing the gentle curve of her coat, the fractured compass securely tucked beneath. Behind her, the world was awakening. The land was quiet, the waves whispering lullabies that echoed both the chaos she had overcome and the peace she now embraced. Her eyes, dark yet calm, looked out across the restless ocean, reflecting a depth she had long sought, an understanding softly blooming beneath the layers of pain and revelation. In the stillness, a gentle breeze stirred, carrying scents of salt and earth, a grounding embrace. She closed her eyes briefly, breathing in the harmony of the moment, the memory of her journey settling like a warm glow in her chest. The turbulent chapters, betrayals, losses, truths uncovered, faded into the background, overtaken by a quiet clarity. Her fingers lingered on the cool surface of the compass in her pocket, feeling its fractured edges, a tangible symbol of her resilience. It had broken, yes, but within its shards, she found fragments of hope, messy, imperfect, yet real. The map within it shimmered faintly, guiding her with unspoken promises of discovery and closure. A slow smile touched her lips, soft, perhaps shy, but undeniably genuine. This was not the victory she had once envisioned, defined by triumph or recognition. Instead, it was a peaceful acknowledgement and acceptance that sometimes the greatest strength lies in surrendering to what is, embracing the scars and the beauty intertwined. She turned her gaze downward, where the cliff's edge met the sea in a seamless union, an eternal dance of earth and water. The jagged rocks below and the endless horizon beyond were both sacred and indifferent, witnesses to her transformation. Her breath slowed, a gentle exhale that carried away lingering doubts and fears. In that silence, she felt her roots deepen into the sacred ground of her ancestors, loved ones who had navigated storms in darkness, now guiding her to her own peaceful harbor. With deliberate grace, Elena reached into her coat, subtly exposing the fractured compass as a silent gift to the horizon. The wind played with her hair and clothing, a tender caress as she held the relic in her hand, fragile yet fierce, a symbol of her voyage, a testament to courage and hope. The sun's rays finally broke through the clouds, casting a golden glow that warmed her skin and illuminated the rugged beauty of her surroundings. Her eyes shimmered with quiet Hippian understanding that her journey was complete, yet her story had only just begun. With a deep breath, she took a small, purposeful step forward, her figure a gentle testimony to resilience, peace, and the profound union of past and future. The golden hour descended softly over the coastal town, casting a warm, amber glow that cloaked the jagged cliffs and silent lighthouse in a gentle embrace. Elena Rivers stood atop the cliff's edge, feeling the weight of her journey settle into a quiet, profound peace. Her silhouette was steady against the vast, unfathomable ocean, a figure transformed, no longer a seeker of secrets lost in chaos, but a harbinger of acceptance. Her hands clasped the weathered map, one once broken and uncertain, now worn smooth through countless revelations. Its silent promise of Unionland merging with sea mirrored her own unification of past pain and future hope. Every scar on her spirit had become a thread woven into this delicate tapestry, a testament to resilience and forgiveness. The wind brushed softly against her face, carrying scents of salt and blooming wildflowers, whispering quiet lullabies of healing and rebirth. Her eyes, once clouded with doubt and longing, now shimmered with a luminous clarity, the understanding that the true power lay in embracing the complexities of her family's legacy, not in unraveling every mystery. In the tranquil silence, she rested her fingertips on her heart, feeling the steady pulse of a new beginning, calmer, stronger, unshaken by the chaos that once threatened to drown her. The fractured compass, now an emblem of her resilience, glinted faintly in the fading light, a symbol not of lost direction, but of the path she had forged through darkness. Behind her, the ancient lighthouse stood Serenea, guardian of secrets and enlightenment in equal measure. She looked back once, a gentle smile crossing her lips, her soul finally at peace with all the truths she had uncovered. The waves below, relentless and chaotic, had become a rhythmic hymn, an ode to emotional depths she was finally willing to explore. Closing her eyes, Elena let go of the last remnants of fear and regret, embracing the union of her past and future, land and sea, chaos and calm. In that moment, she became part of the eternal dance of tide and time, a living testament to redemption and hope. The scene lingered in hushed reverence as the sun dipped beneath the horizon, leaving a canvas of fire and gold. Elena, now rooted in serenity, remained at the edge, her heart open and unburdened, her spirit shining like lighthouse beams piercing the night. The ocean's song softened into a whisper, a lullaby of peace wrapped around a soul reborn. The horizon softened into a delicate tapestry of violet and gold as the sun dipped lazily behind the distant line of sea and sky. Elena stood motionless at the edge of the cliff, the tumult of her past settling into an unspoken understanding, a quiet, profound peace that had long eluded her. Her silhouette was a gentle presence against the vast, calming expanse, a testament to the tumultuous journey of discovery and reconciliation she now embraced. In her outstretched hand, she held the compass, the fractured, battered relic that had guided her through shadows and secrets. Its broken needle rested as if at peace, no longer seeking but simply existing, symbolizing the union of what was lost and what was found. The ocean's endless song whispered to her, waves lapping and retreating in a timeless dance, a gentle reminder of life's constant ebb and flow. The air was thick with silence, punctuated only by the distant call of seagulls, a lullaby of eternity signaling that the storm within her had finally quieted. Her eyes closed for a moment, a breath taken in slow surrender, opening to absorb the stillness. All contradictions, chaos and calm, loss and love had fused into a single, luminous truth. With a tender, deliberate gesture, she turned her gaze to the merging land and sea beyond the cliff, where the earth met the horizon as only a symbol of her own unity between past and future. Her face, calm and radiant, mirrored the dawn's soft glow, an emblem of resilience and renewal. Her footsteps, gentle yet sure, carried her away from the precipice, leaving behind the fractured compass on the rocky ground, a quiet offering to the endless waters that had carried her through storms of the heart. She paused briefly, a silent thank you in her eyes for the journey, for the truths uncovered, and for the peace earned. In that sacred moment, Elena became part of the landscape, an enduring whisper in the wind, a ripple in the ocean's vast symphony, a quiet monument to the transformative power of truth and reconciliation. The camera pulled back slowly, capturing her silhouette against the sprawling, sun-kissed horizon, a final image of unshakable serenity, of a story quietly completed amidst the eternal union of land and sea. Would you follow the map? Share your thoughts below.